Henry, what's happened to you? What's happened to us and our marriage?
This cathedral must rise. It'll stand like a great beacon. I want its light to shine.
Never mind, Henry, never mind.
God, please help me.
Good evening.
Who are you?
I'm an angel. I was instructed to come here in answer to your prayer.
There's no time to lose.
Because the cathedral must be built, or because Julia must be happy?
This has been the most wonderful evening I've had in years.
This has been the most wonderful evening I've had in centuries.
I don't believe you're an angel. I think you're a demon right out of...
Oh, Henry.
Why don't you fight for her?
Fight? For an angel?
Julia is a creature of earth. She's a woman, Henry. And you are a man.
WESN.
Breaking news. It has just come to my attention that there are reports, including one on TTT's Facebook page, which is 12 minutes old, that Minister in the Ministry of Education, Lisa Morris-Julian, according to reports, so I cannot necessarily confirm its veracity, but according to reports, she has passed away in a house fire that occurred last night, apparently sometime after midnight at her home. It is not entirely clear to me how many casualties were in this house fire, but it could have included her two daughters or other members of her family. We will continue to look out for more news, but of course Talking Point is not necessarily a news reporting show, but I felt it was necessary for me, as it was breaking, to report on the matter. This would be a very unfortunate tragedy. As much as fire, property damage and destruction is not necessarily unknown to us, deaths because of it is not necessarily the norm. There have been tragedies in the past where either someone was trapped by the fire, couldn't get out, or in one horrific case that I guess certain aspects I will never forget, a young child, a toddler, ran back in the house unknowingly and perished in the blaze. Or cases where very young children or babies were inaccessible and perished because of a house fire. So the circumstances now of an adult and what potentially would have been children who hopefully weren't too young to evacuate relatively safely, all of these questions, if these reports are true, are things that come to my mind here on Talking Point. What were the circumstances? Hopefully there was nothing done in bad faith, nothing done with regards to foul play. As much as, I mean, saying the words feels very, very strange, but if it was just an accident, because the implications if it was not, I'm not necessarily up to the task of trying to consider them, to be honest. This Christmas period, it's a strange one, I guess you could say. Some people have been going okay, others, one of our neighbors living in the area, things for her family hasn't been so smooth sailing for the month of December in 2024. And now we potentially, unless we get some reports to update the story which contradict the current version of events, it appears that one member of the government, one of our politicians, has passed away in most tragic circumstances. And regardless of the politics of the situation, loss of life is not something that, well, I know that there are extreme cases where the death of someone may be seen as an enemy of the state or so on, has been celebrated before in other parts of the world. I just hope things don't get so partisan, so divisive here, that we reach to that point. Speaking of that, a couple of things I want to mention before we go into the meat of the matter today. First, a lot of noise is being made over the status of forces agreement. Now, the Newsday had a interpretation of what it could possibly mean in one of their headlines particularly, and I do wonder if a lot of it is because of the headlines. Now, not only has the Prime Minister expressed his disagreement, his discomfort at the headline, but apparently so too has the U.S. Embassy. Now, the thing about the headline is this. Did they read the full article to understand the context of the full article? And even if they did, those who do not like the headline, maybe they are coming from a place where they are looking at, or they are considering the fact that other people might not read the whole article. So how much sensationalism is in the title of said article, or did they have issues with the contents? I'm not entirely sure. Now, the opposition leader has latched onto this issue, and I do wonder if she's maybe taking this in the wrong direction. She's saying it's not enough for Prime Minister to deem this interpretation wrong, but refuse to explain or clarify what it entails. Now, to some extent, she's right. He doesn't necessarily clarify more, and that's in another story later on, as a more clear-cut example, if you don't necessarily agree with this as an example. But she's bringing up things at the timing of the agreement, the fact that the Trump administration is going to replace the Biden administration soon. I get that. But the thing is, it seems almost like if she's kind of debating a separate point to what the Newsday brought up, which is that U.S. forces can deploy. And in that article, unless I am mistaken, my memory says that it also clarified, but it has to be done essentially by the invitation of TNT. It's not like they could unilaterally say, we're deploying to TNT, y'all can't do anything about it, TNT. Now, the U.S. Embassy apparently also had concerns about the article, saying that it was a standard agreement that allowed for military-to-military engagement between TNT and the U.S. And then they talked about establishing a culture of maintenance and allows the U.S. to assist TNT security services with maintenance and training. All right, fine. It maintains the relationship. It teaches our forces about maintenance. It's not like we do a lot of heavy logistics, and there are certain things that they will have experience with that we just won't. So, all right, maybe, sure, fine. Of course, combat training and the like, we're going to have limited combat experience in our defense force. That's just the nature of our nation. All right, fine. And they pointed out that, like the Prime Minister, this is something that's been in an agreement since 2007. The thing is, I do wonder, to some extent, because again, as much as I understand and the embassy having to take a situation where it also apparently, and this is the Newsday reporting saying that the embassy shares the Prime Minister's concerns about the Newsday's own article. Now, to some extent, kudos to the Newsday, because this potentially may be, depending on the concerns, undercuts the validity of their article. I don't necessarily think that's the case, because they essentially they highlighted an aspect of the agreement that they thought was pertinent for the public to know. One of the interesting things with America is, similar to TNT, people in certain positions, like military positions, police positions, there's politics obviously also affects them. And in this case, now, to some extent, and you have a new administration coming in, do they want to be connected to a political message? Was it never the intention to be connected to this at all? I think the thing about it is, I don't think the news there is attributing politics to the situation per se directly, and the indirect implications are just based on the nature of what the thing is, which that's what they're reporting on. But I could see where members of the U.S. Embassy don't necessarily want it to be viewed that way, either because they don't want it to seem like that's their position, and then the incoming administration, maybe they don't want to be aligned with it, or they want to be aligned with the incoming administration, who knows, right? Because the Trump administration has not necessarily spoken on these minor details, Trinidad and Tobago, Venezuelan relations, and what that means to the U.S. I don't think they've even looked into that yet until somebody from the Department of State puts it on the president's desk. But at the end of the day, that is what the agreement can allow for. And again, it goes back to my previous point. Why is it that they are taking an issue with one newspaper pointing out a fact that could be of critical importance? And at the end of the day, and I guess to some extent maybe this is international diplomacy, they don't necessarily want that fact to be highlighted to maybe cause Maduro to stir up more trouble than necessary. Or maybe they do. I don't necessarily know. What they say on the surface is not necessarily what they mean exactly. It's just what they want us to hear. So it's hard to say. But I wouldn't necessarily fault Newsday for their framing of the SOFA. The opposition leader now asking for further clarification, I think, is trying to make more of a political issue of something that doesn't particularly exist. But then David Abdullah, he has gone further, saying that it sends the wrong message signing this agreement, which, again, to the credit of the embassy and the Prime Minister, pre-existed, and it existed during the time of the partnership, and it was not interfered with, right? The U.S., which can interpret the document for its own ends, of expanding its influence in this area. At the end of the day, the U.S. already has influence in this area. We are, as much as we will look to China to be an alternative source for whatever, we import a lot of our food from the U.S. We have a lot of other financial, economic, socio-cultural ties and strategic ties to the U.S. I don't know to what, yes, technically they can get more influence, but for the most part, the influence is here, right? He said that the agreement was a total betrayal of our national sovereignty and our dignity as a nation. He opposed any treaty to allow U.S. military personnel to have free reign in TNT. Now, I don't know if they have free reign, right? Because, of course, part of it included the capacity for civilian personnel, I believe, to be disciplined. If they break the law, if military personnel break the law, usually that's something treated with military law enforcement by the states, etc., etc. Contractors don't have the same protection, but they're agents of the United States government, so they will deal with it. And that's a way meant to facilitate an easier working relationship. Here's the thing. I don't know if TNT wants that heat of saying, no, if one of your soldiers or civilian employees, not contractors, does something on TNT soil, they have to go through our judicial system. Because at the very least, not only will that cause potentially, further a potential international incident, but let's not expose to the rest of the world what dire straits our judicial system is. If our judicial system was working at 100% and our criminal justice system was working at 100%, fine, maybe this is something that we could debate, but then also possibly common practice is, in some jurisdictions at least, hey, American service member does something, let the American Criminal Investigation Service of whichever military service he's under deal with him, let their military code of their code of military justice deal with him. We don't have to deal with him, so that we don't have to have American lobbyists try to paint us as the bad guys somehow. They'll just deal with it, right? Depending on what the situation is. I don't know if Mr. Abdullah is completely looking towards that. I don't know if he's looking towards that. Because to some extent, his interpretation, I think, is a little bit off base. U.S. troops could come here if invited, with permission, by our government, for exercises or for actual operations, right? Disaster relief, or maybe to help with our national security. The key phrase is if invited, / with permission. So I don't really see how we lose our sovereignty. And I think at the end of the day, to sum this all up, there are bigger fish to fry. There are better issues to debate than this one. Now, if there was something a bit more specific that he could point to, because I don't think he points to a specific clause that is the reason behind his interpretation, I don't know. I don't know why he's come to this conclusion. Who knows what the U.S. interpretation will be? Really? I get it. Politicians and diplomats and military people could be fast and loose with their interpretation of things at times. But generally speaking, precedents that have been set could be, past behavior that indicates future behavior, maybe. United States has military cooperation bases all over the world, more so than many other nations. So it's not like we don't have examples that we could look at. And unless you're saying that we are a hotbed of terrorism, it's not like we have to worry about what happens in the Middle East happening here. I'll leave that there. Last thing I just want to mention quick, there are concerns over the fact that Mr. Alan Warner is one of the contractors for supplying cement to the airport project. Dr. Rudolph Munila brings up the concerns. Now, a stakeholder has basically said, well, look, he could do the job. The quality of cement that he could provide is potentially better than other contractors. You don't want to give it to someone who cannot meet the quality of standards for the work that's involved. That's fair. That is fair. I understand that. Here's the problem. I believe the stakeholder is the same person that also said that, look, with regards to illegal quarrying and all the other aspects of it, this is a moot point in his view. If you run a proper investigation into quarrying in Trinidad and Tobago, you'll find a lot of us, even established people with quarries, don't always do the right thing. That's all I can say. You kind of said it there. It's not a moot point because he's not doing the right thing. Just because everybody doesn't always do the right thing doesn't make it right. Just because everybody breaks the law, and that's technically what this is, regardless of if it's common practice or not, doesn't make it legal. That's point number one. But point number two, here's the thing. If I am Mr. Warner, and I have big contracts with the government, and I am quarrying for the government, and I gave the Prime Minister a gift of a discounted townhouse as a gift that isn't meant to mean anything beyond being a gift and is in no way, shape, or form, right? I'm saying it is in no way, shape, or form any sort of under-the-table bribery or corruption, right? Because it's not right. That's the argument that the Prime Minister had and the, oh gosh, not the Professional Standards Bureau, but the investigating body. 3 times they looked into it and 3 times they said no. All right, fine. No corruption there. We'll take it out your way. The fact of the matter is, someone in his position should understand that he needs to do things above board because the level of scrutiny he's going to be under is going to be greater than average Joe Schmo contractor who does not have a personal relationship with the Prime Minister, who is not doing a lot of money on business for the state, who may or may not have a whole set of contracts from the outgoing former THA administrations under the PNM to the tune of $700 million, which has strapped the current THA with a whole lot of debt, apparently. Not necessarily debt, but money owing. In his position, let's not be clumsy with how we operate. And, we could break the law just like how everybody else breaks the law and expect nothing bad to happen. Because even if the police didn't raid his situation and confiscate his property, in the eyes of public opinion, it makes the Prime Minister look as though he's guilty of corruption. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying the Inez Gate situation is not an example of corruption. I'm saying that being so blatant with the nonsense, given the respective positions of the people involved, it looks bad. And ironically, for the other people inquiring, here you go. The untold secrets are slowly being revealed. Now, I wonder if the state will have the political will to actually do anything about it. Probably not. Which again would make the situation look bad. It's almost like if they want to appear as though they are completely corrupt and devoid of any moral fiber or standing. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying they're doing a very good job of making us think that they're corrupt. Really, really good job of misleading us, of lying to us. Because they're not corrupt, right? But they're doing a really good job lying to us and telling us, hey, we're corrupt here. With their actions, with their clumsiness, with their poor foresight and inability to anticipate how this could look. How it could look. I mean, that's an old song. One would think your memories are long enough to, at the very least, remember that basic concept in our society. But then again, no one has ever accused of the vast majority of politicians of actually being patriotic, true to the bone Trinbagonians. They're just living in a whole different world to us, apparently. If they think it's okay to do things that make them look corrupt and then want to know why we suspect them of anything. I don't know, maybe things that you say are sus. Let's take that break now. When we come back, we'll get into the daily review and touch on an old friend that I wish would just go away. Stay tuned to Talking Point on WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Having trouble Christmas shopping? Check out the Kids Shop today. For all your officially licensed kid character merchandise, we carry characters such as Disney Princess, Frozen, Spider-Man, Paw Patrol, Sonic, My Little Pony, and much more. Call or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Nationwide delivery available. The Kids Shop, for all your licensed kids character merchandise.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust. Prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, Well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Barbie,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces Flagship, McLean, Movietown, Port of Spain, Eastgate Mall, and M6 Plaza, Endeavour. Merry Christmas, everyone!
¿Qué camino cogería si cogióle la desgracia? ¿Qué golpe no llevaría? ¿Qué golpe no llevaría? Una mujer me llamaba, pero yo no le...
Welcome back to Talking Point on WSND Content Capital. Sean Michael Small here. I don't know. Just to switch back directions to what I was last speaking about, I'll say this. I actually don't necessarily have a problem with Mr. Warner providing concrete for the airport project, assuming that maybe someone like, I don't know, the procurement regulator oversaw the contract and the rates are reasonable, right? I'm not going to say that they have to be the cheapest rates. Obviously, you don't want them to be most expensive rates for the work that he's doing. It's just that the position he's in, it would have helped if he was squeaky clean and did everything to look squeaky clean. And he may be squeaky clean, but he doesn't seem to be doing everything to look squeaky clean. And the position you're in, and just on the sheer amount of business that he does, his net worth, the worth of his businesses, that's alone should be reason enough that he should be wary about anything that he might do or say that could harm his own reputation. But I guess ICNTT, someone with a bad reputation, could still do business with the government because public outcry means absolutely nothing. Right, let's not talk about that anymore. Of course, there are videos circulating on social media about the fire which may have claimed the life, it is believed to be the case of Minister in the Ministry of Education, Lisa Morris-Julian, and one or more of her children. So stay tuned to WSN and or other news stations in the country for updates. Further thoughts and prayers goes to surviving family members. I can't even imagine what's that like with tragedy during the Christmas season or any other holiday time. With that said, just want to inform the viewers, the acting ASP, Christopher Arun, was supposed to join me today, but he is unable to do so due to illness. However, we still have a lot of show to get through. So, without any further ado, let's kick off today's Daily Review. All right, so when the police said that November murders dropped, I said, hold the phone. This is not a trend. 1 month does not a trend make. Now, it might be that for the most part, we're not trending towards 60 murders a month. But I've seen this before where even in the record-breaking year, not every month had 60 murders. Some months had 40, some had 50, some, one or two, I think, had 30, if my memory is correct. It's not impossible. In fact, the record-breaking year, sorry, not month, year, of January wasn't as high as the murder rate of January the following year, because I believe the rate of murders, maybe they just continued for whatever reason, and 2023's year, which was, I think, the second highest at the time, the January of 2023 was higher than January of 2022, the record-setting year. So these things fluctuate. You can't read into totally 1 month or the other. Now, the key point is this. As of December 30th, one day the newspapers reported the murder rate being 580. And as of December the 15th, the murder rate is now at 587. Either way, we have surpassed 577, which is last year's murder total, which would have been the second highest then. Now 2023 is the third highest, 2024 is the second highest. So the thing is, one data point does not a trend make. Going from 23 to 24, where we have exceeded last year's murder rate, is not necessarily a trend. It could be a fluctuation, and it could be that the trend, at least if we look at 3 data points, 22, 23, 24, is that we're hovering around 600. And it might be higher or lower, but that seems to be maybe where the balance point is, which to some extent, the circumstances and factors that lead us to this are not like factors that cause an economy to reach a certain balance point with the price of food or the price of gas. Murders are a bit more dependent on random factors of chance, opportunity, and a whole host of other things that have nothing to do with any sort of balance point or need for statistical pattern to emerge. But with that said, that might be what we might observe with our current situation, where we are now at the second highest murder rate for the year that we have seen in the country. And this is why people did not like the police trying to report on good news. It's a catch-22, because to some extent I can understand why they would want to report on something that is viewed as a good thing. But at the end of the day, I think to some extent this is not as bad as when Erla rated herself as doing an excellent job, but this is along that line, to a lesser degree, but along that line, where DCP in charge of operations, Junior Benjamin, he was hoping to see a decline in the murder rate continue into December. And the fact of the matter is, we can't see that decline. But one of the things that I don't necessarily know if it was acknowledged in his words or by the police is that even if December 60 murders a month, generally speaking, that's high. That's about 2 murders a day. Some months we've seen 66 murders, pushing close to 70. December now, we've reached the point where, look, we had 7 murders between December the 13th and the 15th, according to one newspaper's tally. So you could say that's basically 2 days, 7 murders in 2 days. That's almost 3 to 4 murders a day. That's point number one. So we'll see what December of 2024 looks like. But then point number two, even if we just had 1 murder a day, which will average, or if that's the average, we'll get 30 for a month, which is technically a low month. It's a hell of a way to live, right? When we're looking forward to only 30 people a month dying as opposed to 60-something people a month dying. But if that is the rate for the rest of the year, this is now December the 16th. We're at 287. We only need, potentially, if that total is correct, 13 more murders to hit 600. At less than 1 a day, we could reach that before the end of the year. And that assumes we don't have any mass murder sprees going on, any multi-victim casualties, or high casualty incidents with spray and pray and the like. I don't know how to take this, but now knives seem to be in vogue. And the thing about it is, if what has happened, there's one murder in particular, I couldn't necessarily look away. I don't like looking at each individual murder case, but there's one that has quite a lot of reporting in the last couple of days. Pensioner, or yesterday, this morning, pensioner killed during home invasion with a knife taken from her home. And the reports, I believe, I don't know if they directly say that she was cooperative and didn't struggle, but the reports are essentially, yeah, they killed her anyway. Despite taking all that they could carry that was available in her home. Her elderly husband, I believe, was also in the house, and he was not killed. He may have been tied up, but his mother was killed with a knife. So now we've reached the point where, and I think this is an important concept because I saw a photo on social media from the States. Of course, their issues with guns are somewhat different to ours, but essentially it was a photo of a billboard that said, if guns kill people, well then cars cause vehicular accidents, spoons and forks cause people to get fat, and so on and so on. People kill people. And we need to do something about the people looking to kill people. Yes, we need to do something with guns too, but we need to understand that the murders are not going to go down and we're not even close to dealing with the gun problem. I hate to say this, but there was also another murder with someone being killed by a knife. These things will probably be viewed as, well, if private citizens had access to guns, they'll be at less of a risk of home invaders coming, taking a kitchen knife and killing you with your own kitchen knife in your own home. Now, with that said, the home invaders could potentially get a jump on you and take your own gun from you and kill you with your own gun. So I don't necessarily know how true that is. I want to throw that out there and potentially nip that in the bud, because I do believe there will be people around the country thinking, well, if they only had guns, they'll be fine. Not necessarily. These are pensioners, so that's a whole other kettle of fish. It all comes back down to your own home security. And believe it or not, I have seen a video of a former Special Forces U.S. soldier, former Delta Force operator, which is basically at the pinnacle of individual military performance. And when speaking about home defense, yes, he spoke about having his own firearms, a handgun near where he sleeps, etc., etc. But he also spoke about things like cameras, maybe even fake cameras, street lighting, alarm systems, dogs, and other what we might think of as mundane home security measures. But to him, he is like, this is all, you know, get it all. Because all of these things do matter. All of these things do help. Burglar proofing, to some extent, could make it harder for home invaders to break into your house once it's locked. But then, of course, that also comes with the responsibility of making sure that you lock up your house and all of that jazz. I say this because the murder rate is what it is. And I still feel as though too many people are maybe taking it for granted that things are okay. So we're not demanding anything from the government about it. And we're also not necessarily taking all the steps necessary to keep ourselves safe. Now, we're getting closer to 600 murders. The head of the Social and Welfare Association for the TTPS, he's saying that, or he was responding, this is a report, to the growing public outrage over the crime situation and the murders. And the report has it phrased as murders speeding towards 600. So it is said, and this is why I said, you come out as the TTPS and say you hope this trend continues and murders have reduced, and you do that for the first month, like as soon as we get a little bit of good news, let's throw it out there. And then the following month, it's almost like it comes and just slaps that message in the face, and potentially the messenger, which is why I said it's similar to what Erla saying that she does an excellent job, right? Now, Gideon Dixon, head of the SWA, he's saying it's very easy to point fingers and blame the police because we accept that we play a significant role in protecting citizens. However, we must recognize that what is happening cannot be viewed in isolation from broader issues affecting TNT. I understand that. I am all for the long-term social programs and economic programs to deal with the issue in the long run. The problem is, and here's an interesting thing that I never thought I was going to say, because I disagree with this from the jump, and history has proven that it has not just not worked, but has been disastrous for crime rates across America. The whole defund the police situation did not help the shooting of unarmed black men, did not help police engagement with the public in America. In fact, it probably made it worse because the actual good cops didn't want to deal with all the bacchanal and they left. Deal with the bacchanal of the poor public perception, the politics, and taking a pay cut. They were like, nope, we're out. Meanwhile, the narcissists who just wanted the power to abuse and potentially use for corruption, that's where they're going to make their money anyway. Those guys stayed in the police service, and that's a whole other kettle of fish. But defund the police meant We're going to use some of the money, including jurisdictions like Oakland where they had record lows for crime. We're going to then now, all right, crime is record low. We're going to defund the police. We're going to put it in social programs, and we will keep the problem nipped in the bud for all time. That was the hope. Unfortunately, in about 3 years or 4 years from crime being a record low, crime went to record highs. As I've said before, the same news anchor team basically read the two diametrically opposed reports. So I understand that the police are not the be-all and end-all, Mr. Dixon. But here's the problem. The immediate concerns of crime primarily can only be addressed by the police. Now, if you want to sit down and keep your mouth shut and not complain about things that other stakeholders are not doing, not reveal other people letting you and the rest of us down and affecting your ability to do your job and the rest of the police service, that's on you. I understand that it might not be politically convenient. I understand that it's not going to be easy. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. Unfortunately, we're talking about a situation where people are dying. People are dying, so forgive me for basically saying if you're not up to the task of making the hard decisions and doing the hard work, make way for someone else. The union is one of the bodies who has the capacity to communicate publicly. The unions, like other unions, could reveal bad things going on, bad decisions being made, bad circumstances, bad working conditions, thereby exposing maybe some of the problems in the police service, or maybe the union also understands that some of the blame really does fall in line with us, so we can't be pot calling kettle black right now because we'll be called out also by the people we try to bring up, and we'll just bring everybody down. So we rather continue to collect our checks and not solve the problem, and then just try and do damage control. Maybe that's the case. I don't know, because I don't have evidence to present what I may or may not know. Let's put it that way. But I will say this. The results are bad. The results are bad, and we've reached the point where all of these wonderful words to say, don't blame us. Do you realize, I wonder, does anyone in public realize that all of the various arms of national security is basically saying at one point in time or the other, some version of don't blame us? Well then, if the entire Ministry of National Security is not to blame, who's to blame? Because at the end of the day, societal changes, the village to raise children, social programs and economic programs and job opportunities, that's fine in the long run. That ain't stopping the gangster today, who's a gangster right now, who's going to murder someone tomorrow, who's already murdered someone yesterday. It ain't stopping him. So all of this, who want to point fingers? No. We have reached the point now where we could say that we're averaging about 580 to 590 murders a year. Put on the big boy pants and accept accountability for what the situation is, all who are involved. And that also includes the voters. That means all of us. We allow this to happen. Just remember that. Case in point. Let's move on to the next story. The PCA director has been reappointed. He will continue in his role after being in the role for 10 years. 10 years now. And again, I had a talk with Mark Anthony Peter, I believe, either on this show and on Breakthrough, where there's a difference between results-based analysis versus process. The problem is when you're talking about people being murdered, granted, I'm not saying we should break the law with regards to the process, but the results kind of trump, well, just trust the process and we're doing all the right things. Really? Kind of find that hard to believe that you're doing all the right things given what's going on. Now, the PCA is supposed to be a backstop, a check on any sort of untoward things that police officers might do, although their authority and capacity is not like what we would think it to be. They're not like an internal affairs division of the police service, which I guess we have the reverse problem. Abroad, the stereotype is IAD or IAB they're hated by their fellow officers. Here, to some extent, we have to wonder, is the PSB protecting their fellow officers? We don't know. We don't know, because the results of some of these recent cases, they don't necessarily paint the police service in a good light. One of the other alternative bodies is the PCA. Where are the results? Now, here's the thing. This is not all Mr. West's fault, ironically, given what I just said, rhetorically to Gideon Dixon. This is not all Mr. West's fault. He is in charge of a body that has essentially no teeth. I have yet to see the difference that the PCA has made in any substantial way, shape, or form with regards to clamping down on police corruption, clamping down on police bad behavior, and potentially putting any sort of dent in any sort of situation with regards to extrajudicial killings. Extrajudicial killings. But I don't necessarily know to what degree is it his fault. Is it the framework that the PCA operates fault? The legislation's fault? The lack of political will from the government's fault? I don't know. So they reinstated him, so what? Who cares? I don't even know if the PCA is an organization that provides any sort of merit to the country outside of in minor cases of minor incidents. Whereas we need something to do with major cases, major questions of corruption and the like. And it's not, again, it's not necessarily his fault. But at the same time, I do have to wonder, given the results, can someone do a better job? We've reached the point now where there's too much bacchanal going on. We complain about the lack of whatever with the police service, then they get away, not just with that, but also these poor results from the various arms that are supposed to police the police, that's supposed to deal with corrupt police. Whether it's the executive leadership who showed no spine with regards to enforcing their own policies and holding the rank and file of the service to account, whether it's the union, right, trying to tell their members, listen, we need to be reasonable what we're doing if we want to then make reasonable demands for our own compensation and working conditions. Or the various arms and institutions meant to backstop and police the police. What do we put our faith in? And Mr. West has gone so far as to say, well, I want to end with his wonderful quote. It was incredible. Tremendous growth in public trust. This is in the PCA. I would like to know who, what, when, where, how, why. And so what? Why does the public have trust in the PCA? For what reason? How was this determined? When did this happen? And what effect is it actually having? Because I think it's cute if the public actually does trust the PCA. That's nice. I've yet to see any tangible benefit for the PCA's existence, regardless of it is a poor leadership under Mr. West, or because he's hamstrung by how it's set up, because no one actually wants to deal with corruption. And he himself is just more than content to kind of stay in his lane and say what little he could say without rocking the boat so that he'll continue to be reappointed. Because that's the thing, right? Who appoints these independent people? Therein lies the question. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I'll have a quick video about an old friend who we all wish we would never really hear from again. Stay tuned to Talk About the WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Henry, what's happened to you? What's happened to us and our marriage?
This cathedral must rise. It'll stand like a great beacon. I want its light to shine.
Never mind, Henry, never mind.
God, please help me.
Good evening.
Who are you?
I'm an angel. I was instructed to come here in answer to your prayer.
There's no time to lose.
Because the cathedral must be built, or because Julia must be happy?
This has been the most wonderful evening I've had in years.
This has been the most wonderful evening I've had in centuries.
I don't believe you're an angel. I think you're a demon right out of...
Oh, Henry.
Why don't you fight for her?
Fight? For an angel?
Julia is a creature of earth. She's a woman, Henry. And you are a man.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Bobby,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McLean, Movie Town for the Spain, Eastgate Smart and M6 Plaza Endeavour. Merry Christmas, everyone!
Having trouble Christmas shopping? Check out the Kids Shop today. For all your officially licensed kid character merchandise, we carry characters such as Disney Princess, Frozen, Spider-Man, Paw Patrol, Sonic, My Little Pony, and much more. Call or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Nationwide delivery available. The Kids Shop, for all your licensed kids character merchandise.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Long COVID is still a disease in great evolution progress, but I think there's a couple solid things we know about it, which has changed since long COVID began. I think number one is we all in the medical community know this is a real disease, and it's a real, the symptoms may not be well defined, but it's clearly a real disease with real pathophysiology we're trying to figure out and real triggers. So that's probably first and foremost. Number two, we've learned that certain types of people tend to predominate towards long COVID. The first people who had the original variant or the Delta variant in 2021 were much more likely to get long COVID than the current Omicron variants we're seeing now, which is part of it. There's sort of two big baskets. One is kind of what we would call constitutional or neurologic symptoms. The fancy term for that means big things that are more general, such as fatigue, brain fog, lethargy, sleep disturbances, a lot of just, being tired and not having the energy and needing a nap. Another big bucket is what we call heart and lung or cardiopulmonary issues. So chest pain, shortness of breath, trouble breathing, high heart rates, and sometimes the two overlap. There is a third group which sometimes has joint pain and rashes and other symptoms such as hair loss, which are very similar to the bigger fatigue ones, but sort of fit across both as well. We're still seeing that many of these people, years later, can't attend school and work and have meaningful ability to function the way they did prior to COVID. And it's really hard for a lot of our patients. They want to go back to living life, they want to be better, and they just still can't. It appears, as research comes out, there are a few things we can do to lessen the likelihood of getting long COVID, and if it does end up that we get long COVID, our symptoms may be less severe. And that's number one, to get vaccinated, and then number two, if you do get COVID, to get treated, usually with drugs like Paxlovid and some of the others. Now, the data is kind of new with that, but it appears that reducing, the likelihood of severe outcomes in COVID also will reduce the likelihood of getting long COVID. I would say the best thing to do if you do have long COVID is get involved in a medical community. So that would mean, for me, a couple different areas. One is see a doctor who specializes in long COVID. Number two, make sure they plug you into the areas of need that you have. So for example, if you have loss of smell and taste, if you have brain fog, if you have chest pain, you see the right specialists, ENT, neurology, cardiology or pulmonary. So you see the specialists you can get. That's one thing. Number two is there is a community, and a lot of this is psychosocial. So, any illness can feel really lonely and that you're very alone. So being around people who are in the similar shape, learning how to manage those symptoms, whether it's online and in person, has just been really, really helpful. I think I'm hopeful about treatment for long COVID because we are the first thing is recognition, right? So if you recognize that it's a disease, then the investments and the medical community, the research community all follow behind. So we're seeing a lot of that happening now in the last few years. So that's where this information is coming out. So I think it's very positive that we're going to have more information over time. And as people improve and we see the rates of long COVID decline, it'll sort of be a nice match where we can learn how to prevent it, how to sort of treat it. People will tell their stories about how they've gotten better over time. So I'm not generally an optimist, but I feel pretty optimistic.
So COVID, it's just one of those things, right? If we never really hear that word again, I think all of us would be a lot happier. But the fact of the matter is long COVID still exists, and I do believe it affects people, including people on this show or have been on this show. There's a news report of the effect it had on someone who is an acquaintance of mine. I won't necessarily get into her story. You could see that in today's Newsday, I believe, or yesterday's Newsday, sorry. But also, there is another report with regards to COVID from yesterday's Newsday, going into some of what is known, some of the practical realities. One of the things is that, look, people need to understand that with regards to young people, it's a lot easier to detect when things goes wrong. But flu-like symptoms in older people, potentially they just start to think, I'm getting older, things are getting worse, and they may not treat it. And I think this is one of the things that people need to be aware of and to be wary of, not to take it for granted with regards to some of these symptoms. Now, I know the video, the speaker there, he did say that get vaccinated. That it's not entirely sure how vaccines, how effective they are with regards to helping the effects of long COVID. It does apparently work for some people. Similar, they see positive responses in 25% of patients. For 50%, potentially, vaccines made no difference. This is a local doctor, former Faculty of Medical Sciences, UWI Professor Emeritus Terence Mungal, I believe this is his observations. For 50%, no difference, and for 25%, they got worse after they took the vaccine. Potentially, I guess, if, depending on your situation, if you're immune response can't deal with the vaccine because, again, vaccines always has risks. And one of the things is long COVID still isn't necessarily understood, but as more information, unfortunately, as more people have it, we will get more information on it. But in the meantime, I think this is one of those things where what he said there with regards to don't take it for granted, engage with health professionals, of course, go to someone that is, I don't know if we have COVID specialists per se in TNT, but of course, people would have experience with COVID doctors as well as maybe any respiratory illness specialist. And then, of course, if you have brain fog and the like, you know, fatigue, you will then seek out the various other specialists, brain fog, you know, neuro specialists. Fatigue might be cardiovascular or pulmonary specialists, etc., etc. But part of it is not just taking it for granted that, hey, you know, I'm sick and it is what it is and I just live with it and I don't do anything about it at all. Part of it, I think also that Dr. Simongo brought up is some people, maybe they rush back to be active, you know, are not fully recover and that impacts the long-term recovery. But then other people, they don't. They take too long to become back active. And if you're elderly and you allow the fatigue to set in and you become less active and your muscles slowly weaken and atrophy due to misuse because you're thinking, oh, I'm old and I just can't anymore, as opposed to manage the symptoms to get you back on track to whatever level of activity you should be having. Because the thing about NCDs and things like long COVID that this whole thing taught me is once your body gets damaged or diminished, you're not necessarily going to get it back. And this is especially true for elderly people. So you potentially look into doing whatever you can to stave off whatever decline. And let's not talk as though this is only about 80 and 70 years old. This might be pertinent to 60-year-olds, 50-year-olds, and maybe even 40-year-olds. And then also, it might even be pertinent for younger people who this might be having an extreme reaction to. Not everybody is going to have a bad reaction, an extreme version or case of long COVID. The point is, because COVID is basically endemic to the population, just statistical average, we're going to see certain number of cases, a high number of cases of this. It is what it is. But don't take it for granted that, hey, I'm just weaker, I'm just sicker, I'm just older. Do something about it, treat it. Hopefully, COVID will become more and more benign as time goes on and we could basically stop talking about this. This will be like the flu. But at the end of the day, even the flu, we still have people dying from the flu and we still have flu vaccinations. So it is what it is. Be safe out there. With that said, now we'll end this part of the conversation. We'll open up the phone lines so you, the viewer, could chime in and have your say. There are a couple other stories I didn't get to. If you want to get to them, that's fine. Well, there are a lot of stories, a couple that I had planned, but regardless, if you want to get to them, that's okay. Call in and have your say. I know we had one caller call in that's on the line already waiting. Diego Martin, good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning to you, Mr. Sean. Long COVID, and this is a question directly on our country and where we are going. If a gentleman had COVID 5 times, how does long COVID affect him? I say no more, and we could extrapolate the line. But I want to come to the PCA director. He is basically telling us the confidence of the PCA has risen. That might well be so, because if you have no confidence in the police, and the police do something, you have to go to him. So, in fact, it's by default, people going to him and using that as a yardstick. Now, let me tell you how I am marking him, benchmarking. I'm benchmarking him as a failure. You know why? There's one particular case he abandoned, and he was huffing and puffing, and that is the Akil Chamber case. The end result of him, in closing the case, which has now become a cold case, he said, okay, that most of the policemen who investigated that have left the police service, have gone and has died. And he left it at that, and to him that is good. To me that is really, really poor. He should have taken that case, because people call for it to be reopened. You know, a former minister Marlene Codre, say open that in 2013, and 5 police commissioner of police basically treated it as hot potato, nobody going there. And we have to understand why nobody want to go to open back that Akil chambers as a cold case. Get the FBI or somebody external to help us. Because if people covering it up in Trinidad and Tobago, and we know where it might end up, they will not touch it, and it's a cold case, needs to be resolved. Because one of the lawyers who were looking after the Akil family interest, he was the Deputy Police Service Commissioner recently. He's no longer there, and he was an acting judge. And he said during the inquest, the people who the question, the so-called people who was given evidence, including the parents and all people who were part of the swimming pool party, their evidence was not forthcoming. And what I tell you, not forthcoming. They were not reliable. So you had to hold back all of them, get somebody professionally, and question them to the thing. We have to know where the abuse and the death of the child. The person apparently is still roaming from the utterances in the public, and we have to know. I'm going to have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. I mean, herein lies the problem, right? He has been reappointed for a 3rd term. The acting president, and I believe President of the Senate, Nigel Freitas, has confirmed his appointment for maximum term of 5 years, effective 3 days ago. He was reappointed by the government. Need I say more? I get it. They don't have anyone else to fill the job, a job that they don't really care to see any results on. Notice how the government does not speak about him. Because I guess at the end of the day, he doesn't make waves, so they don't need to speak about him. They don't mention the PCA as in any sort of, this is a critical framework and we need to see more results from them with regards to ensuring that the police is held to the standards that they should be held to then further ensure that our national security response to the crime and violence that we see is adequate or sufficient to curb the violence, to get murderers off the streets. The system is completely broken. Let's just understand that, right? I won't go into all the details. And one of the subsections meant to try to deal with a little corner of the commerce. We're not really seeing anything happening. And it's not like the government is saying, oh, well, we need to do better here, there, and everywhere. No, they're not. They're not calling out anybody. And it begs the question, is the reason why the government never calls out to try to publicly hold any arm of any service or sub-service or independent body involved in all of this? The reason why they don't do it is because they bloody well know that those individuals are not as independent as they're supposed to be. And they bloody well know that the results are essentially in part due to what the government has done the way that it is. And the last time someone complained about it, he was removed. Not necessarily for his complaints, that is to say, former Commissioner Guy Griffith, but because of for whatever political reason. And we know that it was political because literally like a week or two before they wanted to get rid of him, they were trying to come up with some cockamamie law to allow him to continue to act that the court had to strike down. Also, they were running cover for his head of legal when the Coast Guard decided to go after him for breaking COVID regulations with regards to a boat party or a boat trip or a boat ride. They didn't get anybody else. But they got him. They got a high-profile fish of a service that may or may not have been a rival, that may or may not have political headbutting between the police and the Coast Guard, maybe, allegedly, potentially. Did they get all of the other boat users that may or may not have been on the water? So, I'll stick up in there. We have Faisal on the line. Good morning, calling you on here.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Good morning, Trinidad. Sean, I just want to call to extend condolences to the Morris family on the passing of the lady in the fire. No? Her correct name can't come to my mind right now. I think she's the MP for Arima, if I'm not mistaken.
But yes, potentially.
Yeah.
I'll double check that.
So, you know, it's a sad day in our history. You know, coming out of I know there was some turmoil recently with respect to her. I hope there is nothing untoward that would have resulted in the death of the woman and the children. Saying that, Sean,
yeah,
it's clearly that the country is in turmoil. We have an angry society, Sean. I am on the ground. I am a businessman, and I have the pulse of the people at hand. You know, yesterday my daughter went out on a hamper drive, and it is amazing to see the level of poverty and joblessness in the society, Sean. I mean, you're dropping off hamper at one place, and you could see neighbor reaching forward and actually begging for hampers. Sean, we're not in a nice place in this country, and it is a result of mismanagement. The wealth of the country is not trickling down to the ordinary man on the street, Sean. We are angry. I'm telling you, my brother, it is going to be a bleak Christmas for 98% of the people at Trinidad and Tobago. You can see it through shopping. You can see, the signs are on the wall. So I think the best thing is let us call an election and let us give, let us breathe some new life into the economy. People not investing their money because they have no confidence in this regime, Sean. It's not that people don't have money in this country, but they're very skeptical to invest their money because they have no confidence. Investors' confidence is gone, Sean. Yeah. And we need to do something quickly to restore the confidence of the people so they could pick out the money and start to let it circulate back in the economy. Have a wonderful day, my friend.
Thank you, caller. Now, the thing is, I believe the most telling thing is the fact that the large conglomerates, seemingly, they want to invest outside of TNT, where they don't have to worry about foreign exchange issues, where they don't have to worry about a tanking economy. I do wonder to what extent. They could say that they are good corporate citizens and they care about their fellow citizens of TNT all they want. But business is in the business of making money. And the lack of any sort of innovative investments and any new extensive investment, it makes me wonder if, for the most part, a lot of the capital of the country is basically being removed or escaping, one way or the other, however you want to put it, because of the situation that we find ourselves in. And now the question is, who's responsible for that? And I don't necessarily think just, okay, we'll vote them out and vote the UNC in is going to solve it. Yes, a solution might look something like that, but just saying we'll just vote them out and vote the next people in and somehow magically all change, it's not quite that simple. Something a little bit more needs to be done. We have Sanford on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Good morning.
You know, I listened to you this morning, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know David West personally?
No.
Do you know David West professionally?
No. Well.
Look, and this tearing, and I listened to you smear David West's reputation this morning.
Uh-huh.
Without, have you gone to anyone recently? The PCA had had some meet and greet in public meetings where they went into different parts of the country. Have you gone to anyone? Did you see any one of them? Did you see or did you go to any one of those things?
Nope.
Have you read any one of the PCA reports in the last 10 years?
Yes,
since 2014, since Mr. West has been there since 2014.
I can't remember which one. I think it might have been the most recent one.
Let me say this, Sean.
Go ahead.
It is unfair. You offered unfair criticism on the PCA and Mr. West. Firstly, the PCA can only operate voluntarily if they get information. People have to come in to complain about it. And there are instances where Mr. West has pushed the envelope and actually seen things on the newspaper or in the media and has launched investigations into those incidents with the police. The legislation, Mr. West has called on numerous occasions for the legislation to be changed to give the PCA more authority to investigate and to deal with some of these errant police officers. Mr. West can only do an investigation and present his findings to the Commissioner of Police. That is all he can do. And he has been doing that. And to come and criticize Mr. West and basically call him a stooge of the political directorate is shameful. I'm saying that to you this morning. The other thing is, do you know if it is that anybody else was approached for the job of PCA president and they refused? Do you know what people are approached and refuse appointments in this country? That has been a complaint of the politicians, that people don't want to come and serve because it is not an easy thing to come and serve. I have a friend of mine who actually is in service on a board, and it takes so much out of some nationals because some people really do it because they're genuine, they want to give back to the country. But it's not an easy thing. And to hear you this morning criticize David West, and I listened to the caller again, and I'm going to always call out this caller when they come with the false information from Diego Martin. And talking about Mr. West. Mr. West was appointed in 2014. Akin Chambers' murder took place long before that. And you can't investigate something if you look at the case you don't have people willing to come and give evidence, or the people not around, what you're going to open? What you're going to open? I agree that Akin Chambers thing was very, very suspicious, and people should be held accountable. But to throw it on Mr. West, come on, man, Sean. Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. Well, look. So that last point, that's a bit tricky, because I don't want him to step out of the legal framework from which he operates under. But at the same time, far too many public servants hide behind the legal framework that they're supposed to operate under. That's point number one. Point number two, I did acknowledge two things. One, I acknowledge the fact that there might be no one better. So that is not me saying that they couldn't get anybody or people refused, but I was acknowledging the fact that, look, the choice of reappointing him might have been legitimate. And if I missed that reason, that's on me, but I didn't necessarily say that the appointment did not have zero chance of legitimacy with regards to appropriateness or the potential of getting a better alternative. But what I did directly acknowledge is part of it could be, or it could all be, the framework from which he operates under. That's holding the whole situation back. I did. But I also pointed to the leadership. Because at the end of the day, I understand where you're coming from. But again, we are long past the point where we could just sit down and say, well, what do you expect the man to do? He can't do nothing, you know. So let's just put him back there and see what happens. There are certain aspects of leaderships when you are in charge of certain serious or important entities that goes beyond just what you do with the core functions of your job. Now, I'm not saying that you should break the law. But at the end of the day, we have serious problems. And if you're not part of the solution, why are you here? If he himself can't do anything, and yet he's willing to continue the appointment, I get it, he's fighting a good fight, but I reserve the right to say that regardless of how good his fight is, it's not good enough, because at the end of the day, the results, Mr. San Fernando, is that bad. And that's why I was on earlier from day one. Because this is not the kind of thing where I could afford, And the rest of the country could afford, oh God, just be nice to the man now, but he means well. Give him a chance, you know, give him some time. It's been 10 years. If the situation is not working, I don't care how often he has already spoken out about it. He has continued to participate. So to some extent, he is tacitly saying, well, this is the best we could do right now. It's good enough for him to continue to collect a check under the framework that is operating under. Yes, there are limitations to what he does, big limitations. That's fine. But he talks a big game too. Let's not make any mistake about it. He talks a big game, and we see nothing for it. So I am not going to apologize for judging the man, because people are dying, and some of it is extrajudicial killings, and some of it is crime involving police officers, and some of it is police officers not being professional, so that they leave murderers on the streets to murder again. And he's not the main part of the problem. He's not the only part of the problem. But the lack of results is a problem. So if we want to debate to what extent he is part of the lack of results on his end, yeah, we could debate that. I'll admit that. I'm not saying that I know for sure how culpable he is or not. But I just think this whole, it's hard out there. I get it. But we're not talking about someone working in a ministry trying to deal with low-level corruption. We're talking about something very important, to deal with something very important that indirectly and directly contributes to 687 this year, 587 this year, 577 last year, and 605 the year before. I'm sorry, I don't have the time, and I can't afford, we don't have the capacity to afford dealing with this as though, oh, well, you know, it's just a job, and he's doing the job the best he can. We have Faizaman on the line. Good morning, caller, on here.
Yeah. Good morning again. You know, I want to debunk a little bit about San Fernando without just thrown at you. I think we still maintain the freedom of speech and opinion in this country. I respect yours, you respect mine. The other thing is, Sean, I would have read in the newspaper where Kamla Prasad Visesa would have objected to the reappointment of David West. So, you know, and we didn't see anything come out of it that they're making a statement. As to say that nobody didn't apply, we do not know that for sure. The thing is, there's so much political interference in the appointment of these officers, Sean, under this regime. It is difficult to tell. And you ask me, I think that giving Mr. West more power than he has, his job is to investigate and report. What more power does he want, Sean? Are we going to create a parallel investigative unit from the police that would tend to override or interfere with police investigation, Sean? You know, we have to be careful. We have to be careful. So it's to say that people not offering the stuff, I will debunk that. I will debunk that totally. The leader of the opposition has said, and she had made it known, that she had, you know, questioned the reappointment of David West, and of course she must have reasons for that. Those are the things that are supposed to be made public, so we will know. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, caller. I mean, at the end of the day, the opposition has their own biases and agendas too. Let's not make that mistake, right? Because again, it's not like the opposition should do a better job of having these issues when they're issues, not when, oh, he's going to be reappointed, now it's an issue. Now, I get that. That's the way how the tempo goes with the media and the press, but let us operate on that tempo. It's not necessarily our job to do the opposition's jobs for it. They should be on the ball with all of the things going wrong. One of the things to me is a lack of accountability in various aspects of the public service, which includes the police service, and this is one of those things that's supposed to help with that, and it doesn't seem to be helping one bit, right? Regardless of how much good work, I don't know, is it that the work, it's too tall of a task? The mountain is too tall to summit, and the PCA is facing such an uphill battle? I don't know, but something is not working, and I don't really see the PCA contributing enough to try to get it to work, regardless of what they actually do to try to do so. It's not enough, apparently, because we see literally no change. We have Davide on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Caller, good morning. You're on here. Caller? Caller, are you there? Oh, boy. All right. Well, I'm being told to tell you to call back on the next line because we're not hearing you if you haven't gone away from the phone. But time is pressing, so if you take too long, we might not be able to take your call. With that said, with regards to the investigative system to deal with corrupt cops or allegations of corruptions where if we had a good investigation system, it would clear the police officers in question proactively, not just on technicalities, which would be a lot greater benefit to those cops who are not corrupt, to clear their name. I don't know what needs to be changed, but something needs to be changed. Now, here's the catch. To be fair, I don't know if I would trust any of these politicians to actually make the changes. But I would trust them to change the people who are supposed to hold the police to account, whether it's the PSB, the PCA, or whoever. I'll trust them to do that more than I'll trust them with constitutional reform, which also needs to be done. And that's the thing. He is appointed. This is not the first time we could look at someone who was appointed. In my opinion, whatever Mr. West says, it's of limited urgency. It's limited. Maybe it's because the press doesn't pick up on it enough. Doesn't run with the story as it would with other stories, or maybe because he himself limits how he frames things, what he says about them, because maybe he feels boxed in and he can't say anything more. Or maybe he doesn't want to say anything more. There's a lot of things with regards to national security that fall in that category of either you are boxed in or you box yourself in. And unfortunately, that's the nature of the role that he's in. He is a political appointee. So he needs to understand that he will be judged under that framework and the environment of other political appointees who have appeared to be less than independent. Whether it's fair or not, it's similar to, with regards to Mr. Warner. The position that you're in is not just the title. I think, do we have a call on the line? Caller, good morning. Caller?
Hello, yes?
Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Last caller. Go ahead, caller.
I just wanted, hello.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make two comments on Mr. West. I think that he has done a very good job. He's a very brave man in what he says. And what we need to look at is how many times for the year he has asked for certain additional powers to improve his efficiency in what he's doing. Have we got those figures? Those figures are there. I listen to them. I look at the television all the time. And he's asking all the time for additional powers for the PCA. But he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And he's very brave at what he says. The other thing we must look at, how many, his job, he does an investigation, and then he sends it either to the DPP or back to the police.
Yeah.
How many of those have been done? Do we have those statistics? I don't like speaking in generalities at all with these things, in percentages and all of these things. How many? Because I have heard him over and over and over say he needs to get certain more powers, and he also has sent these things to the DPP, these things to the police. How many of those things have come back as far as you know, dealt with in one way or another? Nothing. It's very, very unfair to Mr. West. Because I know that situation and I know inside there. I have been in that environment. And he is very brave in what he's doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. I understand that. And that might be true. But here's the problem. And perhaps then that just makes him a victim of circumstance. But at the end of the day, I know two things. One, the overall situation has not been significantly impacted enough in my mind by his efforts. Regardless of how many reports he puts in, how many complaints he makes, how much powers he continues to request, nothing has really substantially improved. and he has been reappointed. So he's continuing doing a job that one would think, if you're a serious man there on vocation, because I believe Mr. San Fernando or others have pointed out, there are people in the public service that try to change things and it doesn't work. You know what tends to happen? They either leave or they stop trying to change things and they just continue to collect their check. This is speculation, I'll admit it. But there's something to be said about situations where people just get comfortable giving the same complaints they've complained, putting the same disclaimers out there that they put, and doing the work as business as usual. And then we get the same results that we would get from that situation that we've gotten for the last 10 years. And the situation with regards, in this case of the police, but you could insert whatever public institution, ministry, public office, administrative building, administrative center, bureaucracy, whatever. You could insert that here. We get the results that we get because we look at the situation and we're fine with it. Sometimes when you change for the sake of change, people will unfairly get caught in the wash. But I've reached the point now where, to me, what are the priorities? And how unfair is it? This situation is untenable. I do not agree with this situation. But I will continue to live in this situation. I will not change how I am treating the situation. I will not necessarily change how I'm fighting to try to change the situation. I will continue to collect a check and do the job that some people think or say I'm doing a good job of doing, and I might be doing that job well, but I'm essentially, potentially complacent in, well, you know, I'll continue just complaining and, you know, and government thinks I'm doing a good enough job, they'll reappoint me. I mean, just off the bat, someone staying in the same job like that for 10 years, regardless of a good job or not, there's a lot that could be said about that. There's a lot that could be said about that and being continually effective in a role like that. Roles like that, you don't usually have people having that long of a career in it. And at the end of the day, I get it. You have been there, you've done that. Other people might be more in the know than me, look into more of the reports, all of these things. At the end of the day, all I will say is this. What's the result? If you could tell me that it's fine and this is contributing to anything that might reduce the bad in the overall equation, but I don't see that in the results. So I have to question the man as one of the stakeholders. I have to. I don't care how brave he might be. I don't care how much he has tried. Let's just say that everything you'll say is 100% accurate. Unfortunately, the result says he's still not doing enough of a job. And sometimes the job that you're supposed to do is not the one that they pay you for, but the one that you signed up for. And that might also include walking away from the job instead of participating in a situation that seems to be, from the outside looking in, completely ineffective, untenable, and potentially indirectly contributes to the commerce because it doesn't actually deal with the commerce. The results. What are the results? What is the results of his tenure? Are the police better, more professional? Do they take public concerns? Do they listen to the public more closely? Are police more respectful? Are police complaints down? Has the police service become more professional? Is the rank and file paying attention and obeying the policies? doing their job? Because the complaints authority is effective investigating incidents where police are acting in bad faith? I don't think so at the end of the day. He's part of the accountability for the police service. No one disagreed with me for the last couple of months when I said there's a lack of accountability in the police service. So then tell me, where's the disconnect? Because again, if his framework is that bad, how is it that he's more than comfortable enough continuing to participate in that fiasco? Or he might say, in good faith, we need to do more. But obviously, his complaints are not effective enough. And he doesn't see the need, with regards to complaining, to do more. This could be a difference of philosophies. I understand that. And I also understand that it's easier for me to say what he should do as opposed to what he would choose to do. I get that too. But it all comes back down to we have a crime situation or a violent situation. The longer this goes on, the more we'll have situations where home invasions end up with people being stabbed to death when they cooperate with their own kitchen knife or their own knife. That's my concern, not about a man protecting his check. I'm sorry, I'm long past that point. And to be fair to him, he's a minor part of the equation. At the end of the day, long run, that's the irony of all this. He is a minor part of the equation. There's the PSB, there's the police executive, there's the police service commission, there's the National Security Council, the cabinet, etc., etc. The union even might be more responsible over this situation than the police complaints authority. But he's part of the equation. And I'm not going to let anybody off the hook. Because I just don't see the results. That said, to one of the other callers, freedom of speech works both ways. People are free to disagree with me. It's important that they do, that they voice it. Let's not be a whole set of yes people that just want to follow one train of thought like lemmings off the cliff. Let's not do that. Let's have the debate. I welcome it. In this case here, we're going to disagree strongly on this because people are dying. And I have a problem with this whole situation. I have actually heard way too much tragedy for one morning that has nothing to do with the PCA director or that case. Again, yes, it might be unfair to straddle him with the responsibility of it because it's so old. But I've heard so much other tragedies for the morning, including someone in the area. It's hard for me to say this, but I guess in times of tragedy, now it's important for us to make the day good for as many people as we can, including strangers who you may not know. Try, especially drivers, please, for the love of all that is reasonable, be considerate to your fellow citizens. You don't know their story. Ironic, I'm saying that given the whole conversation just now, but it's not quite the same situation, so bear with me. Remember your allegiance to the Republic. And never forget those whose lives have been taken by all that is going on now. There's no virus to blame for 587. There's just us. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN